Hello, Sam. Good morning.
Hi Prakash, good morning.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay. And the Git issue is solved. Thanks for sharing that Git, Stack Overflow link.
yeah, that was only
Just
the problem, right?
yeah, I don't know what it cleared or rectified, but the problem solved
Okay, all right.
by just removing that checkbox and doing it again. And I removed one. I mean, there is one checkbox for checking whether the email is there or not, something like that. So I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
removed
yeah,
it. I
yeah,
allowed to store the email with the check commit.
yeah. So that setting was on, that's why it was causing an
Yeah,
error. Got it, got it.
thank you.
All right. Yeah, yeah. Hi everyone. Good morning. So we have already completed almost entire project till yesterday. So let us now see a few other things which we can add, and also one core requirement I'll cover today, which is the out of stock functionality. So once again, let me just open the code. All right. So yeah, we were till here yesterday. So we have done all the user side pages also. So the home page, the cart page, the borders page. So let me run the application. Oh, yeah. So we are basically here. So from the admin side, we had the ability to create, read, update, delete the categories, and inside category the products also. And from the profile side, for like both user and admin, we can edit the details. And from the user side, we can first of all browse all the products which is there, and we can add them to cart. And in the cart, we can then remove them from cart also, or see what are the products we have added to cart. And let's say we have 5 of these, and so we can now see the total amount we have to pay. So this is also one of the requirements to show the total amount which you have to pay. And then we do the checkout, and we also see the transaction. So now one thing we will see is, as you can see, this one speakers. So the available is 0, and so there's no more in the stock basically. But then we still get the option to do this. So obviously we cannot like increase it or decrease it to anything. But if I set it to 1 and do add to cart, then you can see that nothing is happening, because we have set the internal validation of this to minimum of 1 and maximum of 0, which makes no sense. So that's why it's not even sending a request. And even if we, let's say, remove that, we will still get the backend error. So let's say if we come here and remove this min1 max 0, so let's say we set the max to 10 or something. Even then, if we do this, it will give us a backend error. So quantity should be between 1 and 0, which makes no sense. So what we will do now instead of this is we will show a out of stock button here instead of all this. So the functionality is not very hard to add. So what we'll do is in the page where we are showing this, the index page, when we are showing this form, so we will only conditionally render this form. So basically, I'll have this inside a if condition. So outside we'll have a if, and there we will basically check if the quantity is greater than 1, right? So greater than 0. So we can get the products quantity using product.quantity. So if product.quantity is greater than 0, then we will do this. Else, so we will put the else block. Else we will basically show them a out of stock. So there are multiple ways we can simply write the text out of stock, or we can make some fancy design also. So I'll simply take a bootstrap element so that I don't have to design anything. I'll just make it a button. So I'll make it a button, but then I'll make it disabled so they cannot click it. And I'll also give it the class of button and button outline ranger. So this will make it look red. And here I'll just say that out of stock. And I can also add a icon. As we saw yesterday, we can use font awesome. So maybe I can use something like a times or something, which means basically a cross. All right. So now if I reload, you can see the others are there, but then here we get a out of stock button. And obviously the user can still basically see how the URLs are built for these, and we can send that request still to the backend. But that obviously will still give us that validation error. So it will never actually do anything. But even from the front end, the user is able to now see how, like, whether something is present or not. So he will directly see and understand this is no longer present. Similarly for this one, right? So that's the simple out of stock functionality, which was also one of the core requirements. So yeah, that's all we need to do for the entire Mad1 project. Search functionality, the browsing functionality, adding to cart, and then buying from cart for the user side, and then basic CRUD from the admin side. So yeah, do let me know if you have any doubts in any of the functionalities which you have done, because that's all you need to do for your Mad1 project also. And then we will also move on to some other optional ones.
Maybe it's not a doubt. I'm just trying to recollect how that. I mean, the card total you're maintaining only in the front end, or we are storing it in the back end. I don't know.
We're not
How it is.
storing it. What we're doing is in the front end, in the cart page, we're basically, while we're sending the route, we are calculating that and sending it. So when we are doing slash cart, this one, so
Okay,
we get the cart and then we basically get the total also
getting a
by,
total.
yeah,
Okay,
by just summing all the
okay,
price times quantity.
and we are sending it to the.
Yeah, we're
Okay,
sending it to the
yeah,
template.
okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we can also store it in the transaction. So once it is completed, so if you remember in our models, the orders are for each order and then the transaction is for like one transaction. So we are storing the date, time, and the user ID. Along with this, we can also store the total. So
But we are
this,
not doing it right now, right?
no, we are
I
not
was
doing this.
yeah. Okay, okay, okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so if you remember normalization, you may think that okay, so we're basically storing redundant information, because if we are doing quantity times price, we're getting the total for each order, and if we are summing
Yeah, of
over
course.
each transaction, then we are getting the total, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, that is one thing. So normalization is usually something which always should be followed, but then not all the time. So in some cases, you need to break normalization for your app to be more efficient. So one example I have added in the resources. Let me open it. Yeah, so if you have time or if you're interested, just go over this one. So in the last, so how Instagram had a Justin Bieber problem. So the gist is basically because he had so many likes for each post he made, and the way Instagram was used to storing is was that they just had a likes table, and each row was basically who liked what. But then for every time they had to render Justin Bieber's post, they had to go through all the rows to count how many
Okay,
likes he had. So it
okay.
basically hang their entire application. So then how they fix it, this basically, so it was a redundant information, but then inside each post also they stored a like count. So it is not as simple as this basically. So they also use some in-memory database, Redis
Yeah,
cache,
I got it. Yeah.
and all that. Yeah, but then that was the basic gist. So sometimes we also may need to break normalization for optimization.
I got it. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. All right. So now let's also see first of all the printing thing. So let's say the user is here and he wants to just print this page. So that is a very simple uh, thing to do. So we don't have to actually do anything for printing. So if you want to customize what you want to show for printing, so that is possible using something called VZ print. So you can look into this. So this is required for Mat 2. So you will anyway be learning this for Mat 2. So if you want, you can also check this out. But for simply printing the contents of the page, we don't need any library at all. So simply if you just have JavaScript and if you just type window.print, and it will just open the print menu of that window. So it's as simple as that. So we'll now quickly add one button which does exactly that. So in the orders page, we will come here, and so yeah, we have this orders, right? So let me add a button here now, button of type button and button primary. And here I will just say, let's say print, and then I'll also have a print icon. So Let's see if we have a print icon. Yes, we do. So the button will look like this. And on clicking this button, so right now nothing is happening. So I will just say here we can put JavaScript here directly. So we'll do on click equals window dot print. Right. So window is automatically present in JavaScript. So we don't have to import anything. And print is one function which it already has. So now if I just click this, it will open the print page. Right. So we have a basic simple printing receipt functionality without doing anything at all. So that's also one feature you can add in your project if you want. All right. So now let's see a little more involved thing which we can do, which is export to CSV. So this one just prints a PDF, right? So you can save it as PDF or you can print it actually to paper. That's up to you. But let us see how we can export this data into a CSV format. So for that, we will need a backend. So let us first create a link, which we'll call that backend, and then we will create the route for that. So what we will do is we will again create a button, and that will have a URL for, and we can say export CSV. If not created this, then obviously we will do it afterwards. And we can simply call it, let's say, export. And let's see if we have any nice icons to go with it. So yeah, file export. I think that should be fine. So let us now create the route in the routes, which should be called export CSV. So we'll come to the bottom and we'll just create another route, tab.route / export CSV. All right, and this should also be auth required. So only an authenticated user can export his transactions as CSV. So what this will do is simply, first of all, we will get the transactions of the current user, right? So for exporting the transactions, we need to get the transactions. So we'll do transactions is transaction.query.filter by, user ID is session.user ID, and order by, so we also ordered basically the same order. So now what we need to do is we need to convert this database into a CSV. So we won't render anything. So there are two ways you can convert to CSV. One is the internal Python's. So let me write it down. So for CSV, there are two ways. One is you can use the CSV module, which is present inside Python itself, or you can install and use Pandas. So Pandas is basically a data science tool, which you will also learn in other courses. So this can also be used to export to CSV. So maybe let us to do it with this one because it's pre-installed, and maybe we can also see this afterwards. All right. So 1 second. Let me. Yeah. So let us import that first. So at the top, let me import CSV. And so we can also export to JSON. We can also export to CSV. So that's they just ask you to implement an export if you like export functionality in the Mat2. So you can choose whether to export to CSV or JSON. So let us try to export to CSV now. So what we'll do is we will basically see how to create a CSV using CSV, Python CSV. And we can basically just use that example and we'll just have to modify the data. So yeah, so what you do is you import the CSV and then you open the file you want to write into, right? So, and then you use something called the CSV writer. So we won't open directly as data.csv. What we will do is we will create it inside the statics. So right now, as you can see, there is no statics folder. So let me create a static. I think it is static without an S. Yeah, it's static. So we create a static folder. Now inside the static folder, we will have the data. So let me create a folder inside called CSV. And now I can get the URL by using the URL for. So the URL for can also be used in the backend. So in here, if I give not a like route, but then I give the URL for static, and then here we can pass a file name. So instead of data.csv, what I'll do is I will say it is inside the folder CSV, and the file name, let's say file name, maybe we can generate randomly. So for that, what we can use is another utility called UUID. So I can do from UUID import UUID4. So this is one method which will simply just create a random name which we can use to save that. So file name, I can simply do UUID, and yeah, so I can get a like hexadecimal UUID, which is basically all the numbers from 0 to 9 and the letters A to F. And at the end, we will need the .csv extension because this is a CSV file. So here, then we simply just add the file name. All right. So then we open not data.csv, but we open the URL, and we open it in the write mode because we want to write into this. All right. And I'm not sure if we need this, but then okay. So let's see if it works. And then we'll open that as a file. So with open as file basically means it'll do the file opening and also the file.close automatically. So we just have to put everything inside that block, and automatically after that block is over, it will also close that file. So we will first define a CSV writer. So a writer is what we use to write the each data into the file. So writer is csv.writer file, and then we use the writer.write row to write each row. So we won't obviously be using this to write data like this manually, but then we will first write the headers, and then we will use a for loop to write each transaction's data in it. So let us see what data we have in each transaction. So we have the ID, the user ID, and the date time. So this in itself is not much useful information for the user. So what we can do is we can combine the transaction and the orders, and we can, instead of storing just one row for each transaction, we store one row for each order, and we can have the transaction ID in it. And also so we don't need to give them their user ID because obviously for them, they are the only user. But then we will also include the date time in it. All right. So let's get this, and then what we will do is we will write the header. So you can remove these, and here we will see what are the data which we have to store. So first of all is the transaction ID. So this will be transaction ID. Then we will store the date time also, date time. After that, we will also store everything about each order. So we will store, so we've already stored its transaction ID. We don't need to store its ID. We can store it, so that's up to you. But then we will store its product ID. We can store the product name if you want it to be user readable. And then we store the quantity and the price at which they bought it. All right, so these are the data we will be storing. So this is the header, the first line which we write. Now we will be running a for loop. So we will run a for loop. So for transaction in transactions, and we will basically get each transaction, and in that transaction we have orders, right? So transaction has a relationship called orders. So we then iterate over each transaction, each order in that transaction, and we write a row for each of those orders. So we then write the transaction.id, the transaction.date time, and then everything else is taken from the order. So the order.product.name, the order.quantity, and the order.price. So all these dots are basically possible because we created relationships. So we can get the order from the transaction because we had a transaction and order relationship. Similarly, we can get the product from the order so that we can also get its name because we had a order and product relationship defined. All right, so once we have written all the rows, we can simply just come out of the for loops, and we can also come out of this with block, and it will automatically close the file. So what we now need to do is we now need to basically return them the file. So I think doing this should be enough. So if we just return them the file's path, then they should be able to download the file themselves. So let us see if this works. All right, so we have now created the endpoint, and we have also created the button. So if I open this and reload, as you can see, there's an export button, And if I click this, okay, so there's no such directories slash static slash CSV. All right, so let us see what went wrong. So in the static CSV, the file is not being saved. All right, so let's see why that is the case. So the file name was auto-generated. As you can see, random file name was auto-generated. So this is working fine, and then this is working fine. And we are coming to the return. So we are doing these. So let me just print if we are writing something. Closing the file to, yeah, so because we're using the with block, right? So the with block automatically closes the file, but I think we also need to like manually tell it to save the details before closing it. So let me see once, maybe uh, we have to use a dot save. So let us just see what are the functions available in the writer. So after the for's, let us see writer dot. All right, so we have write rows, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, so we don't have any other methods. We just have write row and write rows. So we don't have to close the file because we are using the with block, which will close the file. Maybe we need to close the writer object itself. Let us see if that is possible. So writer.close is also not there. You don't have to use the save method when writing CSV. So CSV module will automatically save the file when you close it. However, it's a good practice to use a dot save to explicitly save the file. All right, so let us see if so they're telling us not to use it on the writer, but the file.save. So maybe let us try to do that. So if we do file.save and reload the server, so right now the static CSV is empty. And yeah, so let us go back and re-export. All right, so it is still not working and the static CSV is still empty. So why is that the case? Any idea, anyone? So the file name is got correctly. So it's slash static slash CSV and then something dot CSV. And the basically the URL is all right. So let us print the URL once. Print the URL and let us see what is the URL that is being used. So if I export, we are getting the it will be above the errors. Yeah, so we are getting the same URL. It's slash static slash CSV and this one. All right, so this should usually, if it's inside this, it should, I think maybe because of the slash static, it is unable to save. So instead of slash static, it should just be static and then CSV. So instead of this, let's say we do, instead of this one, we can simply make it static slash CSV plus file name. And I think this will then work. Sorry. All right, so now we are getting a different error. So I think that's progress. So file.save has no save. So let us not save anyway, because as we were told, we don't need to do that. So if I do export now, yeah, as you can see now it's working, right? So we get a CSV, and if I open the CSV, yeah, it has all the things which we bought, right? So we had the transaction ID, which is 66666, and then 54321. So maybe when we are exporting, we don't want it in a descending order of time. So in the this one, let us not do this order by. All right. So yeah, as you can see, so the error was basically this URL for this is this creates the URL that is for the front end to send a request to. So it'll giving us basically this slash static slash CSV. But then if we are trying to save to this location from the backend, so the slash means to the root of the entire file system. So it will try to go into the root. So right now, let me demonstrate. So we are in slash home slash my name slash docs slash project slash grocery. So it should then inside this go into the static folder and then go into the CSV folder and then save there. But what is this is trying to do? So this should go to basically slash home slash my name slash docs slash projects slash grocery slash static slash CSV slash the name of the CSV. But what this is doing is it is instead of this, it is just going to slash static. So that is obviously not present and also not accessible by the user. So that's why the error was coming. So while opening the file from the backend, we simply just do like the relative path static slash CSV slash the file name. And while giving them the link, then we use the URL for method. All right. So now the export button is working perfectly. So if we export CSV, then we get it in the, so we get all the details of their past orders, and it is in the ascending order of the ID. All right. So we have now done the print functionality and the export functionality. So the another thing which I will touch upon is the charts. So let us do the charts not in the user side, but in the admin side. So let me log out now and log in as the admin. All right. So in the admin dashboard, let's say after the table for the categories is done, let us just show a few statistics. So let me go to the, so I'll just make a quick commit here. So we have done add also, yeah. So now as you can see, it is trying to commit the CSV files also in our database. So basically, in order to ignore that, what we will do is we will abort the commit by keeping an empty message and exiting, and we will go into our gitignore file. And here, along with all these, we will also do static. So we don't want to store. So it depends on you. So if you want to store some files in the static but not the CSV, you can give static slash CSV. Or if you want to not track anything in static at all, you can give just static also. All right. So now if you see that, okay, so let us remove these from the staging area first. So what we'll do is get restore dash staged and everything. And yeah, so now as you can see that static is no longer being tracked. So we just add everything and we commit. And what we have done is we have added print and export for user. All right. So now let's see how we can add the functionality of charts. So in the admin page, let me open the admin page. So yeah, after this table, what I will do is I will add a rule and I will add a h2 of not products, but let's say summary. All right. I think this one was also h2. Yeah. So now inside the summary, what we need to do is we need to show some basic charts. So let us now open chart.js and see how we can use that. So it will have a very simple quick start guide. So you can just copy that and see it working in your system. So let us just see how to do that, getting started. All right, so what you need to do is you need to have one div in your HTML, which will have a canvas of ID my chart. It can be anything, but then you have to basically mention this in your JavaScript. So this canvas tag will let the JavaScript draw anything it wants on the canvas. And then you just include a script, which is the Chart.js script, which is also taken from a CDN. And then in a script, you basically define the type of chart and the data you want inside there. So we'll simply copy this and let us put it in here. All right. So as you can see, we have this, and let us move these scripts to the separate script tag which we have. So script block. So we'll have a block style that we will keep empty, and then we'll have a block script. So let me close that also. Yes. All right. And so inside the block script, we will just paste this. Okay, so the first script is just loading the chart.js, and then the second script will tell the chart.js how to draw our chart in this. So let me just keep this for now and see if it's working. So if I, sorry, if I reload, as you can see, yeah, we have a summary and then we have a chart here. So now instead of this data, we will basically provide it our own data. So what are the things which we can chart? Like some statistics which can be useful for the admin. Any ideas? So, like anything is fine. So there are multiple statistics you can show.
Maybe number of products in each category, something like that, and or um, the product with respect to the stock availability,
Yes, yes, exactly. Right.
something
So
like that.
anything like that we can show. So let's take the first one, which is number of products in each category. So as you can see, this is also a very similar type of chart. So this is number of votes for each color. So let us see how it is defined. So we basically create a new chart, and this context is just the document, like the place where the canvas is defined. And in the chart, we give the data. So type is bar, and the data is then a object. So the labels are red, blue, yellow, green, purple, orange, and the data set is a list where there is a label of number of votes, and the data is basically the values of each, and the border width. This is basically just style. So let us just send these data to the admin and then we can just put it here. So there are better ways to do this, but then because we're making a simple chart, we can just put the data inside the JavaScript. All right. So what we will do is we need, so what we are trying to find is the number of products in each category. So in the admin page, I have to scroll up a lot. Mm, yes, in the admin page, what we do is we now try to find the number of products in each category. So that we can simply do using the products array, right? So if you remember, for each category, we have the relationship of products. So this will create an array. So we can simply use the length of this. So we have the name of the products. So it's name of the category, sorry, category names, and this is basically the category dot name. So for each category object in this list, its dot name will give us the name string. So category dot name for category in categories will give us a list of the names of categories, and then category size, or you can say category, basically the length of the products. So that is the category dot products array and the length of that. So length of category dot products. So this is our label and then this is our data. So if you remember, we basically just have to pass the labels and the data. So we pass these two in here. So category names is category names, category size is category size. And I don't think we have to change anything else. So this one we can just make it number of products in each category or something like that. And the labels now, so instead of this, we will interpolate the thing that is passed to us. So that is category names. All right. And I'll then show how to like fix this. So right now we are getting some error. So if you uh, now give the data, which is category, that's I think category, that's size. Let us make this sizes maybe to be consistent with the naming scheme. Category sizes, and yeah, category sizes. All right. So now if I reload this, you will see that the chart is not there. And that is because when we are sending this, there is some things which Jinja does in order to make it safe so that it changes something. So let us see what is exactly the script that is being sent. So if you see, the script that was sent was this one, and now you get that the strings are escaped, right? So the opening quotes and the closing quotes of each string, so instead of it being the actual opening quotes and closing quotes, it has escaped that into the HTML code of that. And because this is inside JavaScript, this will obviously not work, right? So this basically the entire JavaScript thing is not working because of that. So what we do is we basically we have a few filters, inbuilt filters of Jinja, that let us bypass this. So one is safe. So if I give safe, this means that whatever I'm passing, I know what I am passing, so it is only passed by me. So I think this is safe, so you can not do the basically the changing of symbols. If we do this now, if you reload, you can see that it is working now, and the quotes are then converted back into the actual quotes. And the data, because it was numbers, so there was no quotes, so nothing was changed. But you can also put the safe here as well. So now if you reload, you can see that we have a basic chart of the number of products of electronics, number of products of furniture, number of products of food. So let us see if it changes. So let's say so we have 3, 2, 2. So that's why we have 3, 2, and 2. So let's say I add another thing in the food. So we have rice and pulses. Let us also add chicken maybe. So sorry if someone is veg here, so no offense. So let's say the price is 100 rupees. All right. So now that we have this, all right, so something is not working. Okay, no, that's fine. So yeah, inside this products page, we obviously don't have the chart, so it's in the home. So let us go back to the home. Yeah, and now you can see the chart basically updates every time we make the changes. So the advantages of creating the charts on the front end is you just send the data, right? So in the back end, the only processing you've done is getting the data and basically like filtering that or to get the only the names and the length. So this is a very fast process. You don't have to do anything else. You just have to fetch the data and you're just passing it to the front end. And everything else like showing the chart and all, this is done in the front end. So as soon as the user presses refresh, the page loaded very fast. So this part, it may take some time or it may use some animations to load, but then the main concern of the user is the page should load fast. And then making all the designs and everything, that heavy lifting is done by the user's computer on the front end. So the load times of your site will drastically reduce if you give this non-vital things to the front end to handle. So basically, if you're doing it in the backend, you have to open matplotlib, you have to plot the data in the memory, you have to save that file into the file system. So the file system is also a very slow thing, right? So if you're using too much file reading and writing, it will slow down your application. So then you're storing it into the file system, then you're sending that link to the front end to display that image. So all that takes a lot of time, and then the front end has to again request that image, and that will again load, and then only he can show it. So it is usually preferred to show dynamic chats. And also another benefit is you can see that we have some interactivity, right? So I can hover over these and get some important details like, okay, number of products 3. So I don't have to like read the line and come here and see it's 2. So usually for things which are interactive, it's better to do it in the front end. All right, so this is the basics of how chart.js works. So I won't delve into deep. So obviously there are other charts also you can use. So this was just a bar chart, right? So if you go to chart types, you can see you can have an area chart, which is something like, okay, no example is there, but then yeah, you have area charts, you have bar charts, which is what we saw. You have bubble charts, which is like this. So the size of the bubble also demonstrates something. So this is basically a 3D chart. So we have X and Y and also Z, which is demonstrated by the size of the circle. So that is useful if you have something which is 3-dimensional, or some data which has 3 attributes. Then we have like donut and pie charts. So it's totally dependent on you, what you want to represent, how you want to represent. So if you have time, so once you have done the core requirements, just try to think of things you can visually represent and create a few graphs for that as well. So you can have a mix of multiple types of charts also. You can have polar charts, radar charts, etc. So this is usually used by some people if they want to show which skills they are good at. So, so this is just a mock example. So you can see that this person is good at running, but then not so good at eating maybe. So this is one way of demonstrating how well-rounded your portfolio is, right? So maybe you can use this to show, so the same thing which we showed, right? So the number of products in each category, or maybe the amount of sale you're getting in each category. And if you have them in each of the vertex, it can show that, okay, so this one is more or less more well-rounded, whereas this one is getting more focus on a few products and then less on some others. So these are just a few chart ideas you can use and you can plot so that the admin gets better idea of how their application is doing. To create a most sold items chart, do we have to create a new table column in DB to keep quantities sold of each product and category, or can we use a CSV file which keeps this data? Create a most sold. No, because we already have the data, right? So see, we already in our database. One second. We are already storing the orders. So which stores which product is being sold and how many of that is being sold. So you already have a database of which product is sold, how many times, and for how many quantities. So you can just fetch that data from the orders table, and you can use that to create the chart. So you don't have to store it separately in anywhere else. So you can just do the processing in the backend uh, to get that numbers. Yeah, you can just fetch it, and so not maybe directly pass it to chart, because you have to do some calculations also, right? So as you can see in here also, we did a basic calculation that we got the names and then we got the length of the products array. So similarly, you may have to do some other calculations. So you got the all the orders, and then you saw, okay, what are the products unique in that, and then how many times they exist. So a basic checking like that you can do, and then you will create basically the, so in the end it's basically labels and then data, right? So you get the two arrays, labels and then data, and then you can pass it to the front end, similarly to this one. Yeah, exactly. All right, so these are the, let me just check if you're missing something. So these are the things which we had to cover. So PDF and printing, success and error message we have done, out of stock functionality we did, and then we also saw export and then chart. So that's more than enough for you to do the Madman project. So let us now see how we can zip the project and also record the video and so on. All right, so let me now save this and add it to the GitHub, and I think this will be our last commit to it. All right, so add chart in admin dashboard. All right, so yeah, we have added it, and let me push this. Okay, so one another benefit of like using Git and GitHub and adding and pushing things to the database is that you already have maintained a Git ignore. So you already know which things you should have and which things you should not have. So you know in your zip, you should not have the .env, you should not have the VNV, you should not have the dunder cache, you should not have the instance, you should not have the static / CSV. So what you can do is, one thing is you can just remove these files and then create the zip. But then another thing is you can simply, so let me open another window, and yeah, so you can simply go to that place where you are, and you can create another folder. So let's say you create a folder, let's say called grocery shopping submission. And in here, if you just open that, so you actually don't have to open it. Sorry. Yeah. So once you have that, what you can do is you can just clone your repository again here, right? So you can do git clone, and the URL for your repository was. You can just come here to the repository to see that what you have to type. So you get this code button. So just copy this. So if you're using SSH, just copy this, and you can do git clone this. And after this, if you give a space and then you type the name of a folder, then it will get cloned into that folder. So I can do grocery shopping underscore submission. So now you basically have two copies of it, right? So the actual one, which is grocery, just grocery, I think. So let me see. Yeah, so just a grocery. So projects / grocery. And then we created this other folder, grocery underscore shopping underscore submission. And the GitHub is then again cloned into that. So you may be asking, okay, what is the use of that? Because we're just copying it. So, but then one difference is that in some files in this actual folder is not tracked by Git, right? So the statics, the instance and all that. So because that's not tracked, it's not uploaded in the GitHub repository. So similarly, when you clone it back, it is not present in this folder at all. So here you can see the folders, only the files are there, and the requirements and templates folder is there. So the instance, the statics are not present. So I can also show you the difference. So we can see the directory side. So I think we can use du for that. So du grocery, we can see I'll have to see how to get the total size, but then I'll let you know. But then I already have one script to get that, so this won't work on your system. But then this is just one script which does it for me. So for grocery, you can see that the directory size, including all the virtual environment and everything, is 51 MB. And obviously, this is not possible to zip into 10 MB. But the main part is that actually your code which runs, that, so the thing you actually need to ship actually is around 100 KB. So you can see the drastic difference, right? So this is basically 51,000 KB, and this is just 100 KB. So you can simply just zip this folder. So the folder root name can be anything. So right now we have this name. So you can just zip this folder. So let me open a maybe a UI so that it's easier to show. So yeah, grocery, this one. So you can just right click and you can do compress. So in your Windows also you will have these options. So you can just zip it. And now you can see we have the zip. And the zip size is around 65 KB. So also there was some redundant information. So it compressed it, and from 100 it became 65 KB.
What is the maximum size that is allowed, Shyam?
So for MAD one, I think the maximum size is 10 MB, but that is
Okay.
obviously way higher than anything you actually need. So
But what command you use to get the size? I didn't get that part.
yeah,
You have
so
some
the
your own.
yeah, I have my own. So let me just see how I created it. I forgot actually. Uh, so what I did was okay, yeah, I did some things, but then yeah, okay, you can just use the du command if you're on Linux. So there is a way to get the total size. I think dash C. So let us see du
Okay.
dash C grocery. Uh, yeah, so 62 MB. So you can also, I think, so I'll let you know. So there are other flags which you can combine in it so that it shows you in megabytes and then it does not show all these things on top.
Okay.
Yeah.
But basically, if we share only the source code, that is enough,
Yes.
right? So
Yes,
any
exactly.
specific, so we don't, so only the lib or the templates alone is enough, for excluding the V environment and static, that is enough, right?
Yes, yes. So we will exclude the virtual environment, we'll exclude the static, we will exclude the instance which has the database,
Okay.
all that. So we'll have the Python files, we'll have the templates files, and we'll also have a sample of env so that we can quickly set up our current
Okay.
env. Yeah. And so let me also show you, once you have submitted and you have been selected the level 1 Viva. So what you do is you will then have to show the project. So how we will do this is, Tanishq is asking if we pre-include placeholder images in static and zip, is there a way to compress these images so that we can include them? Yeah, so usually images will be low size only. So images will be around 100 to 200 KBs. If it's a PNG, it may also be less than that if it's compressed. Sorry, if it's a JPG. So just make sure you are having less amount of images, and ideally you should not have any data or any image in there. But then if you even if you're having it, uh, it will usually never cross 10 MB. If you're removing virtual environment, that should be enough. So let me just show that the grocery which we were seeing, which is how much, 51 MB. So most of it is actually from the VN itself. So the VN is itself 51.37 MB, right? So and then everything else is this 0.60 minus 0.37. So if you just remove the VN, your file will be very small only. So yeah, so let's say you have submitted the project, you got selected, and then your level 1 Viva is about to happen. So what you will do is you will then go inside the so let me stop this server first. So I'll stop this server. So now if you see, if you reload this page, it's no longer there. So that's fine. So what you do is when you're giving the demonstration, you go inside the actual submission, so which you cloned and zipped. So ideally they will ask you to unzip the zip and then match a checksum. So that code will be shared to you. But yeah, so after you have matched the checksum, they will ask you to demonstrate the project. So what you do is you enter the folder, and now you can,
Shyam,
yeah.
sorry. Uh, so once we uploaded the zip, they will share it again with us, and we need to unzip and then we have to show that, or
Yes,
I
yes,
didn't get
yes,
it.
yes. So they will not share it with you again. So it will be available to you only in the portal where you uploaded. So once you
Okay.
upload, it's also available for you to download again. So you can just
Okay.
download and have it ready. And I'll explain the validation part. So what you have to do to create the checksum and all, I'll come to that after this. So there
Okay.
is also a process. So yeah, that will also be sent to you on email. But then yeah, I'll explain this after this one. Tanish is asking, can you explain about the validation process and form to be done before submission? Uh, can you elaborate? I didn't get your question. So the validation process and form, G form, yeah. So the Google form is basically like the way to check if your project is eligible for submission, right? So they do a few simple checks. One of that is if you have zipped it correctly. So right now, if you see, one second, that our zip which was present, not this, zip which was present, the zip had one folder inside it, and everything else was present inside this, right? So you have to compulsorily follow this structure. So what you do is basically you have this folder where everything is there, then you zip that folder. So you don't go inside that folder and zip everything. You, from the outside of that folder, you zip that folder. So your zip should have just one folder inside, and which should have everything in it. So that is one thing they will check. Another thing they will check is that your project should contain minimum of one .py file. So it should contain Python file. So things like that. So for Mat2, they will check if it should contain at least one JavaScript file. So simple things. So if you have created the project, you will obviously pass the validation. So even if you don't, it will show you exactly what is missing. So let's say you forgot to include any Python file or something like that. So it will show you in the mail. So once you upload it, they will automatically send you a mail with the report. So there it will tell you that your project does not contain a Python file. So you can just fix what is wrong, and then you can upload it again in the form. All right. So usually you'll not have to do it if you're doing it correctly. All right. So let us see now how you will do it. So once you are inside that folder, as you see, there is no VN all right. So the first thing you have to do is you have to set up the virtual environment. And now, as you remember, every time we installed something in the VM, we made sure that we have also pip freeze it into the requirements.txt. And that is very important because this is exactly what you will use now to set your folder back again. So you will do pip install -r requirements.txt. So, oh yeah, sorry, my bad. So after you have created the VM, we have to first get inside the VM. So you will do source, or you can use dot venv bin activated. Okay, so now that once you're inside the virtual environment, now you will do pip install -r requirements.txt, and this will install all the things listed in that requirements.txt into your this current virtual environment. So you can basically see why we didn't include it, right? So that 50 MB of data can be just compressed into this requirements.txt file. As long as you have this file and a internet connection, pip can again recreate the VM exactly the same way. So now that our VM is there and we have installed everything, so I think that's all. We also need to create the .env. So right now you can see our .env.sample has everything we need except the secret key. So you can just copy paste it and then add some random secret key to it. So let me just copy .env.sample to .env, and in here you can simply just open it in either VS Code. Also you can open it in. So I'm just showing it how you can come here and you can just change it to anything else you want. So yeah, that's all. So you have set up your .env, you have set up your virtual environment. So now you run Flask run. And so now you open this, and this will obviously not have your data, which because we removed the instance. So while you're showing your project, you are anyway supposed to show every functionality. So we will start with the register itself. So as you can see, if we log in as admin, we can log in because we auto created the admin. So the admin page is working, but then there's no category and no summary. But if I try to log out and log in as my user, it will say username does not exist. So let us first see how we can register for it. So we can just give the password and the name, and we can register, and then we can also log in. All right. And then you can see that there is no products also, right? So we basically show all the functionalities from empty uh, database. And here, so you can basically show that you can add a category, and you can also open the category and add products, so things like that. So that is not what I'm anyway trying to show. So the main thing is how you clone the repository into a folder again. So you can either do that, or you can obviously also delete the stuff from your folder. That's also fine. And then you recreate it by using python -m vn, and then you activate it, and then you do pip install -r requirements.txt. So that's all you need to do, and then set up the environment variable also. So this is how you will show the demo. So now let me also explain a little bit about the checksum which will be there. Uh, so the way for them to see whether you are actually running the same folder which you submitted or not. So obviously people can just cheat, right? So they can say they uploaded version 2. So I'm just giving a version name so that it's easy to understand what I'm saying. So let's say they made some changes. So they started creating the project, then they added some features with version 1, then they added some features with version 2. So let's say this is almost 60% complete, and today is your deadline. So he can just submit this version 2, right? And then when the Viva is there a few days later, by that time, let's say he has worked on it and created version 3, and then finally version 4, which is, let's say, 100% complete. So he can simply just open this and show the demo. So this is not allowed. You cannot do this, and this will also basically give you a malpractice, and you have to redo the project again. So what you have to do is this one, which is submitted as v2, you have to, so you'll have a zip of that in your portal itself, because you will be uploading that zip. So that zip you will then unzip, and what they do is internally also, once you have submitted this, they will also do this unzip. uh, Sorry, please ignore the disturbance. Let me know if it's too much, then maybe we'll take a 2 minutes break, but then yeah. So the unzip, what they will do is after they have unzipped, they will have that one folder, right? So that is part of the requirement. It should just have one folder. So let's say the folder's name is mad1p. So what they will do is they will take all the contents of the folder, so everything inside, and that will be run through a checksum. So for those of you who don't know what checksum is basically some mathematical process which given any size of data, so whether it be 1 byte or 1 gigabyte also, it will give you just one string of letters. So it will be around, let's say, 100 or 200 characters. So let me give you a small example. So let's say I have the word hello, and I pass it through a checksum. So SHA-512 checksum. So this will give me this. So even though my text was just hello, it will give me this. And now let's say I have a very big text. So yeah, so let's say I have the requirements.txt entire file itself. And even if I pass this through SHA-512 sum, this will also give me exactly same length output. So the text will be totally different. So every letter and number is totally different, but it will be the same size. And then another good thing about checksum is that even if you, like, let's say in a 1 gigabyte data, even if you just flip 1 byte, the entire string will be totally different. So that's one way of verifying if something file is same, or maybe it is corrupted or something has changed. So they run this checksum and they get this text, and this will be stored with the level 1 and level 2 Viva. So they have this. So what they will ask you now is to unzip this as well and run through the same process. So they will send you the code. So it's basically a 2-line Python code, and you have to run that Python code on your folder, and you have to get the checksum. And only if this checksum matches with what is there with the level 1 or level 2 Viva, only then your Viva will be started. Otherwise, so you won't be able to start the Viva. So it's not usually a problem. So even if you do something wrong and the checksum is not working, the Viva external will help you into doing it. At least the level 1 will do. So they will tell you, okay, just download it again and then unzip it this way. So they know how to do it. So they'll also guide you through it if you are unable to do it. But then usually what you're supposed to do is before the Viva, so the day or 1 day or 2 day before the Viva, just practice unzipping the file and then running the checksum. So the code will be sent to you via your email a few days before the Viva. So you can just run that and get the checksum.
Sharon,
Yeah.
once we say, for example, you create a check. I mean, once you download it, unzip and create a checksum for this MAD 1P project,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this folder doesn't contain uh, virtual environment or
Yes.
static files,
Correct.
things like that, right?
Correct.
So while getting into the Viva, we create this checksum and we validate it.
Yes.
That's the
So
level I understood.
yes.
But for running or executing a product or deploying the project, we need those other files, right? So after
Yes.
that only we need to do all that install requirements, something things like that, right?
Yes, exactly. So what you will do is you will like optionally you will either download or you maybe already have that zip. So then you will unzip, then you will do the checksum, and once it's verified, only then so you will set up. And what I recommend is only then you first even CD into the folder, and then you do the setup. So another thing is in some systems, even if you CD into the folder, it may change something internally. So Mac
Yeah.
OS may create some file, right? Hidden file. Windows may
Yes.
create some
Yes.
hidden file. So that will also mess up with your checksum. So what I recommend is just unzip when the level 1 has started, do the checksum. It will obviously always match if you're just unzipping and doing the checksum. And then only then just enter the folder and then you do all the setup. So you can do the pip install, you can do the V and all of that.
So is it fine? We try to download in a few times and do try to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
all the
yeah.
steps,
That's totally
and
fine.
we can store the steps in a separate file, right? So that we don't need to every time type and sync. We can copy paste those steps and
Yes,
use
yes, yes.
that. Will they allow that?
Yes, that's fine. You can
Okay,
also like if you forget the steps, right? So Python dash mvm VM, you can store that in a file.
that's
So
fine. Okay,
yeah, it can be text file, it can be a script file also. So if it's a script
okay.
file, just show them what is there and then run it. If it's a text file, you can just open and copy each line and do it. So that's the
That's great. Yeah. That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
yeah,
Because every time remembering these steps and running is a big problem.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's not issue. So they'll allow that. All right, Tanish is asking to showcase API paths. Do we have to use the RESTful website or just terminal browser? Okay, so to show the RESTful APIs, usually what we use is we will use the Postman application. So you can Postman or Insomnia. It's totally up to you. Both are exactly the same with some differences. So you can use the Insomnia or Postman application. So you can download these and install these. So the reason I'm not recommending you to use the website is because if you're using the website, for the website for it to access your local host and everything, you also do some additional setup. So what you have to do is you have to enable things like course, etc. So this is cross-origin restriction. So, so that we don't have to do all this, you simply use this native application. So just install Postman and you can see a like 5 minutes tutorial on YouTube how to use it. It's pretty simple. It'll just have a like address bar on the top, just like a browser. You just give the address and press enter, same as a browser. So you can either use Postman or Insomnia to do the checking even while you're developing, and also while showing to the Viva, you can use that.
What's this insomnia? I didn't get that.
So Postman and Insomnia are both ways of
Okay,
sending requests to REST or other APIs. So
okay,
I'll
okay.
show you one second. Let me open it. So I don't think I have Postman, I have Insomnia. So the UI of both of them are pretty similar. So once you open this, it'll basically ask you if you want to create some projects or something like that. So this will be asked the first time you open it. Let me see. I don't think I want to log in or something.
No, that's fine. I can explore on that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
so you can, yeah, just you can see a like 5 minutes tutorial on YouTube, and I think that will be enough for this because these are very simple applications. So you just give the URL. So on the top bar, basically in the URL box, you will give your local host 5000 and whatever URL for your API is, right? So let's say when you're trying to show the categories, you do /API/category. And in the browser, usually you don't have a way to change what request you're sending, right? So it is always a GET request. But in this application, you will have a button. So here you can change. I want to send a get request, I want to send a post request, I want to send a put request, etc. And for post, put, etc., you can also have a body. So they will let you manually type what you want to put in the body. So
Okay.
yeah, once I've made the APIs, this will also make more sense what I'm talking about. But then yeah, so for post and put and post, you will also need to give some details. So that also you can write here, and then once you press send, this will send all this data. So as if it's a post, it will basically act like you're sending a form or something like that. And then the output will be shown on the side. So you can basically show the external that, okay, so the API is working.
Shane, one more question. How do
Yeah.
you create checksum for a folder? I was just trying to explore that. So,
Yeah, so
it's
the
just
code, yeah, let me stop sharing my screen and see if I can search the code. So because it's in my mail, so let me just stop sharing now and give me 1 minute to see if I have it, and then I'll
okay.
show. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So I found the code. So this is basically a simple Python code. I'll send it in the chat, and I'll also show how it's done in the here. So yeah, so we already set up the things, right? So we already have the Flask running. So let me go back and delete this folder and just show it again. So let me go into projects. So I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let me remove that folder, grocery, shopping, submission, and let me clone it again. So I have this git clone. So the way we got that folder. So I'm not showing unzipping because I hope like
Yeah,
unzipping
that's
and
fine.
zipping is
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. So instead of cloning, you will basically be unzipping that zip, and you will get this folder, which is
The,
grocery
the,
shopping.
the submission is nothing but you remove the unwanted or
Yes.
not required folders, and only you
Yes.
are having the required folders. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So after that, you have zipped it, and then you have unzipped again during
Yeah.
the Viva. So now have you have this folder. So what you will do is, without entering this folder, in the folder outside that folder, you will create
Can you
one.
do LS? Can you do LS?
So there are multiple things. It will be a little bit confusing because I have lots of project in here. But then
Okay.
you'll have this zip, and then you'll have this
Okay.
actual folder, right? So
Okay. Okay.
once it's unzipped, so you'll have this folder here. And what you can do is you can basically create a file here. So you can open VS Code, or you can open simple Notepad also. So just create a file here with any name. So let me say checksum. So the name can be anything, checksum.py. So this has to be a Python file. And what you do here is you paste what was sent to you on mail. So this code will be sent to you on mail. Just paste
Okay.
it here. And the only thing you change is the folder name.
Okay.
So I think the name of our project was grocery shopping submission, right? So
Submission. Yeah.
yes, so we put that name, so it has to be exact, even the like uppercase, lowercase. So make sure like nothing is like this. So put the exact folder's name in here, and then you don't have to do anything else. So this will basically use the Python internal libraries to do the checksum and then print the hash. So just save this and exit this, and then you just simply run the Python code. So Python checksum.py. So import checksum no more. All right, so this should not be happening. 1 second. So checksum there should exist on its own. If it does not, you may have to do a quick pip install. So let me see if it's installed or not. So this should work. 1 second. All right, so this I think we have to maybe pip install checksum there. And usually this will work directly for you if you do pip install, but then I also have to add extra flag. So this module checksum there, I think it should be pre-installed, but then maybe for some reason it's not. So even if it's not, you can simply install it with pip install. Yeah. So as you can see, successfully installed.
Okay.
And then you can do this python checksum.py, and this will create a checksum for you. So as you can see,
Okay.
the checksum is created, and I'll show what I was trying to say about the CD. So let's say I just CD into this folder and then I CD back. So now if I run the same checksum, you can see, okay, so now it's matching. But then sometimes what happens is, let's say you open it in a so like folder, like Explorer or My Computer, something like that. And if it's Windows or something, it may create some file inside. So this may change the checksum. So right now it's not changed, but let's say now I go inside and I create the venv, right? So maybe I did python-m venv, and just the act of creating this VM will basically change everything inside that folder, right? So a VM folder will be created and the size will be totally different. So now if I run the same checksum, you can see the checksum is different.
Yes.
So what you have to do is just unzip the file and then immediately run this checksum code, and then it will obviously match, and then the external will obviously let you set up your system. So they know you have to remove the VN and all. So you can just enter the folder and then take, let's say, 5-10 minutes to set up the VN and install the things, and then you can start doing the demo.
Okay. Thank you. Share.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so that's almost everything. Only two things are there for you to also do, which is one is the document. So I think the document example will be there in your project portal. So this is simply a Google Doc. So I won't go over how to make it. You just have to like see the template, and then for each like place, so they will ask you to, let's say, list all the models that you have used. So you simply see all the models that you have and you list them out. Similarly, they'll ask what are the packages which you have used. So you can see in your, let's say, so if you enter your folder and you see the requirements, you can also see what are the models, like things which are used. So these are the dependencies. You may not write about these, but then the main ones which you install, right? So Flask, Flask RESTful, Flask SQL Alchemy. So make sure you write about those. So what is that and why you have installed that? So some small things like that will be required in the document. But the main thing which is something people struggle with is the video. So I think yesterday or day before yesterday also we discussed how to record the video. You can either use OBS Studio to record that. That is an application, or you can simply open a Google Meet and join just yourself and no one else. And you can turn on your video and you can turn on the screen share. So it will have both of it side by side, the screen and the video, and you can press on record. So you can go to the like corner here and you can start recording. You can go to the recording and start it. So yeah, that is one way to create the video. If not, you can also use other screen recording utilities, right? So for example, OBS Studio. So just create the video and make sure it's around 3 minutes. So you don't have to cover your code or anything, just give a brief demo. So you can also have, so you don't have to do this, so empty database or something. So let's say the database which you are already working with for so long, which is like the grocery one which we are working. So it has lots of data in it in the database. So you can directly show demo of that in that video, because the video should just let the external know for a short amount of time that what are the features you have done and how it looks, etc. So the video is also important. So although it is not used in the level 1 or level 2, but then it will be used when they are evaluating you. So make sure the video is also of good quality. All right. So yeah, that's all we have to discuss for the project and in our bootcamp. So today is the last day, right? So we have come to the end of all the bootcamp things which we have to do. So now basically is my call for all of you to just incorporate all this, and then whatever you have learned, and maybe practice something again, and then start working on your own project. So this term you will be doing most probably the learning management system. So just try to do whatever you learned from this into the LMS also. So the basic ideas will always be the same. So the CRUD operations will be there, and then for the user, things like searching and all will always be there, filtering and searching. And then some things will be different. So instead of products, it may be things like books, and instead of categories, it may be things like the genres of the books or something like that. So yeah, you can now then try to incorporate all that into your own project. So, and for the project, make sure you're not actually communicating about your project or about your code of your actual project with anyone else, because Mad 1, Mad 2 projects are basically something you have to do on your own. So individual projects. So you should not ideally collaborate. So it may also lead to plagiarism. So make sure you discuss things about the bootcamp if you want, but then when you're doing a project, just do it on your own. All right, so that's all I have to cover from my side. So let me stop the recording, and then we can also take other doubts if we have.